Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. It is Wednesday. Well, it's the other Wednesday. So I'm coming to you guys with another Hidden Figures. This Hidden Figure, it was actually one, that I saw on Instagram that I thought was really, really cool. And it was a woman that I had never heard of. Selma Burke, commonly known as Selma Burke, who was an American sculptor. And a sculpture, a bust that she made of FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was used as the inspiration for the image of FDR that is on the dime. So every single time you see a dime, which is probably like every day, or like how often do we see dimes, spare change, and stuff like that, that image was based off of a sculpture that was created by a Black woman. Why am I just now finding this out? Because Black women are hidden figures throughout history, that's why. Selma Burke was born December 31st, 1900, and died August 29th, 1995. She was an American sculptor and a member of the Harlem Renaissance movement. She's best known for her work regarding President Franklin D. Roosevelt on the Recorder of the Deeds building in Washington, D.C. Her other work, and I'm from D.C., and I don't know this, her other work includes a bust of Duke Ellington, portraits of Mary McLeod Bethune and Booker T. Washington, and sculptures of abolitionists John Brown and President Calvin Coolidge. Selma Burke was born on December 31st, 1900 in Mooresville, North Carolina, the seventh of 10 children. Of course, I got an email as always. The seventh of 10 children. Her father was an AME church minister, and as a child, she attended a one-room segregated schoolhouse. Her interest in sculpting was ignited by her maternal grandmother, who was a painter, although her mother thought that she should pursue a more marketable vocation. Her father nurtured her interest in art by bringing home souvenirs and art projects from his international travels in Europe, Africa, and the Caribbean as an ocean liner chef. Burke attended Winston-Salem State University, and then one of my best friends went there, and then graduated in 1924 from the St. Agnes Training School for Nurses in Raleigh. She moved to Harlem, where she found work as a private nurse. Burke became involved in the Harlem Renaissance during her marriage to Claude McKay. Claude McKay was a writer and poet in the Harlem Renaissance, and I'll include a link on him as well in case any of you guys want to read about him. She worked for the Works Progress Administration and the Harlem Artists Guild, teaching art to children in Harlem. One of her WPA works, a bust of Booker T. Washington, was given to Frederick Douglass High School in Manhattan in 1936. In the late 1930s, she traveled to Europe on a Rosenwald Fellowship to study sculpture in Vienna and in Paris. In 1940, she founded the Selma Burke School of Sculpture in New York City, finishing a Master of Fine Arts degree at Columbia University the following year. Now, this woman was born in 1900, so she did not receive her MFA, her Master of Fine Arts from Columbia until 1940, until she was 40 years old. Right? It is never too late. People keep saying, I keep seeing that a lot, like recently floating around on the internet, on social media, and it's really true. Like, it's never too late. She was committed to teaching art. After teaching at her New York City school, Burke opened the Selma Burke Art Center in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Opened from 1968 to 1981, the center was an original art center that played an integral role in the Pittsburgh art community, offering courses ranging from studio workshops to puppetry classes. Burke retired to New Hope, Pennsylvania, and died in 1995 at the age of 94. After competing in a national contest, Burke won a commission to sculpt a portrait honoring then-President Franklin D. Roosevelt and the Four Freedoms. She created the sculpture based on sketches made during a 45-minute sitting with Roosevelt at the White House, and the plaque was completed in 1944 when she was at the age of 44 years old, and unveiled in September 1945 at the Recorder of Deeds building in Washington, D.C., where it still hangs today. I am 100% sure I have seen this plaque in person. Wow. It is generally accepted that John R. Sinek, who's a white artist, it is generally accepted that John R. Sinek's obverse design on the Roosevelt dime was based on Burke's plaque, although Sinek later denied that her portrait was an influence. It was just a grand old coincidence that the portrait this white man made after he was commissioned to put it on the dime just mysteriously resembled the hell out of this plaque of Franklin D. Roosevelt that was created by this Black woman, right? Burke's other public sculpture pieces includes a bust of Duke Ellington at the Performing Arts Center in Milwaukee, as well as works on display at the Hill House Center in Pittsburgh, the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in New York City, and pieces at Atlanta University's Spelman College and the Smithsonian Museum of American Art. Selma Burke was among the artists featured at the National Urban League's inaugural exhibition at Gallery 62 in 1978. Her last monumental work, created in 1980 when she was 80 years old, is a bronze statue of Martin Luther King Jr. in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I think I read that the statue of Martin Luther King Jr. is like 9 feet tall. So she made a 9-foot-tall bronze statue of Martin Luther King Jr. at the age of 80. Never too late. Burke is an honorary member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. She received 3 honorary doctorate degrees during her lifetime, including one awarded by Livingston College in 1970. Burke was also a member of the first group of women, along with Louise Nevelson, Alice Neal, Georgia O'Keeffe, who we've all heard of, white lady, and Isabel Bishop, to receive Lifetime Achievement Awards from the Women's Caucus for Art in 1979. She also received a Candace Award from the National Coalition of 100 Black Women in 1983. Now, I wanted to read you guys also a really interesting, just like a little bit more information on the whole backstory behind the dime. The profile of Franklin Roosevelt found on the U.S. dime is believed to be based on a sculpture by Selma Burke, but the U.S. Treasury credits the coin's design to former chief engraver at the U.S. Mint, John Sinnock. Former President Roosevelt sat for a sculpture in 1944, and the bronze plaque created by Burke was unveiled by President Harry Truman in 1945, 5 months after Roosevelt's death. This plaque can still be found at the Recorder of Deeds building in Washington, D.C. Sinnock was commissioned by Congress to design the dime after the death of Roosevelt, and his design, which looked very similar to Burke's work, was approved in 1946. The controversy regarding the dime began when Burke herself and others began questioning why the initials JS appeared on the dime and why there was no mention of Burke. Many think that the snub was racially motivated. In other words, because Burke was African American, recognition of her work was purposely excluded, right? And I'm pretty sure her being a woman also probably has something to do with it. Like, again, this is why when we talk about, for example, cultural appropriation, just like I talked about in the Betty Boop video, why it's so important. When people say, like, what's the big deal? It's a big deal because we make all these contributions and then we're literally written out of history. And other people, especially white people, especially white men, are given credit for our work. You know, it matters. So I'm going to read you guys a quote that I really, really liked. A gifted sculptor, Selma Burke was also a tireless educator, advocate, and role model for aspiring Black artists. Sculpting started as child's play for Burke. As a 7-year-old girl and one of 10 children digging in the dirt of her parents' farm in Mooresville, North Carolina, Burke squeezed some wet clay through her fingers one day and grasped a lifelong obsession. It was there in 1907, she later reflected, that I discovered me. She discovered herself in the art. I love that quote. It's a really, really beautiful quote. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. There will be links in the description box as always. Please read up more about this woman. I really love doing Black women artists also that work with a physical medium, because I also just feel like we just don't hear enough about them. So Selma Burke, a hidden figure. See you guys in 2 weeks, so Wednesday after next. Check out the links in the description box. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Peace.